Hi, and welcome to Jadu-Lifestyle podcast for another episode. We have been interviewing a lot of wonderful people and getting great information, and today is no different. We have with us today Ron Nicel, and his nickname is the Green Wizard. So we're going to find out today what that is all about. So, Ron, welcome to Jadu-Lifestyle podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, we're going to go right in. I just finished reading your little book and I was so thrilled by the information. But before we go there, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I sat down to write this book to actually just have a handout for my neighbors that wanted to know what I was doing differently. And what I've ended up with is a very entertaining small book that gives you the details to go organic in your lawn care. It just so happens that it bleeds over into gardening and has tremendous results.
And how
So
did you
my
get
attempt,
into how did you get into this?
well, I bought this really old house, 80 some, almost 90 years old, and the yard had been neglected by both its prior owners. So I started, using everything from the store shelves, thinking that I was going to, create this incredible lawn. And what I ended up with was more weeds than lawn. I couldn't understand what was going on. Um, and then I sat down with my neighbor one day, and he decided that he was going to get me into gardening a little bit. And I applied some of my father's methods and got incredible results, and come back to the reality of, hey, instead of using the chemicals, go back and use your dad's stuff and do what my grandfather had done, my father had done, his grandfather had done on the farms and everything else. And the results have been absolutely astounding by just going back to the old ways.
Okay, let's go into the book a little bit because I found it one funny, but I also found information in there that I one didn't know, and two, a lot of people now are going into making organic gardens. And I think this information is going to be really, really helpful to them. So let's start with weeds. One of the things I learned is that weeds are supposed to be good, whereas I've always heard weeds are bad. You kill them.
Right, right. That's a complete misconception. Mother Nature has given us weeds to attempt to battle against something I call clayification, which is more clay than topsoil. And Mother Nature is doing her best with what she has to try and fix your yard. And there we are putting a chemical weed killer down and making the problem worse. And the weeds come back even stronger rather than going the opposite direction and dying off, because we're creating the problem using the chemicals, is what I'm finding.
Okay, so what did you find in particular about the weeds that you want us to know?
Well, understanding that weeds are not the enemy. By topping off the flowers, we can stop them from overproducing. But by stopping the use of chemicals, the weeds will go away naturally. There are things in my book that you can use as natural weed killers. Mother Nature's provided those. We can stop the weed seed in its tracks, treating the yard. And it's not something that, every year, what I found was, especially with the store-bought system, is you've got to continually keep buying chemicals year after year, more and more, and the weeds just keep coming back stronger and stronger. We're not actually defeating the problem. We're creating a stronger problem by applying the chemicals. When we stop using the chemicals and just go back to using nature, Mother Nature steps in and helps us out, and the weeds naturally go away because the soil conditions turn back to topsoil, where we should have 12, 15. In some scientific studies, they're finding even 40 feet deep of topsoil. We've got barely a half an inch to an inch of topsoil in our yard. So when we start treating our yards better and stop using the store-bought chemicals, go back to nature, Mother Nature steps in and rewards us with fantastic yards and fantastic gardens that produce unbelievable amounts of fruits and vegetables.
All right. I think I have another W word that I want you to talk about. That W word is worms.
Yes, yes. Mother Nature's rototillers. They're the most incredible things. See, this is where the chemicals are actually hurting us, and we're going back to the beginning of the food web, which is the very basic foundation of life itself on the planet. And when we apply these store bought chemicals, we're actually driving the worms away, and they're not here. Ingesting the soils, breaking down the minerals, breaking down what's available in the soils to make it readily available for our plants. The more worms you have, the greater sign that the soils are healthy and that things are going the way they're supposed to. The worms come in when we have a healthy organic matter growing in the soil or existing in the soils. When we don't have that, we don't have the worm abundance that we should naturally have. We don't have to go out and order worms in. They'll come in naturally. And I found some hints and I found some tricks that we can use to attract the worms into our soils and back into our gardens. And I've added them into the book to make it easier, to speed up Mother Nature, to accelerate the program just a little bit and bring those worms in. See, what they're doing is they're going up and down in the soil. They're going left and right. They come out in the morning and cool off, and they go down deep into the soil, and they take organic matter with them as they're going, and they leave these air pockets, and they naturally rototill. We don't need to be tilling our gardens. We need to be feeding the worms and letting them rototill for us and bring all of that aeration into the soils where it should be instead of the compaction that we currently have. Mother Nature's worms will take care of all of the rototilling needs and allow water back into the soil, allow air back into the soil so that the food web, the organic matter that lives in the soil, can actually live. As soon as we start removing that and as soon as the compaction comes in, we lose that organic life and our plants in our yards struggle tremendously and come the weeds. So yes, worms, incredible helpers for everything that we need out there.
Okay, so I think worms are icky, but I understand. I was in a class at one time where we were learning about vegetarian food and things like that, organic and vegetarian, and she actually had a worm farm. So, but she lived in a condo or something like that. So I think she grew the worm, and she talked something about the urine and the worm as being good for the plants. What do you say?
Yes, yes. Worm tea is what they now call it.
Yes.
It's the water coming down through the materials and coming across the worms and the worm urine and draining off. And it is a tremendous boost to your soils. It's a high nitrogen, high mineral substance coming out of with that worm tea and that worm casting tea.
It's amazing how nature itself takes care of itself um, and produces what we need. The thing is that I'm not quite sure I can do worm farming, but I guess if I want to learn how to do organic gardening, I might need that. But I want to ask you, are you going to share any of your secrets here, or do you want us to get it from the book?
Well, I would love for people to get their hands on the book. The necessity for the book today in today's world, when we have so much information available on the internet, the problem is some of that information isn't true. some of that information is misleading. And my book is my actual experience. It's me actually doing it. So learn from my mistakes. This book can help anyone from a brand new homeowner to a well-conditioned NPK gardener change their ways and get even greater results. It's a simple handbook loaded with details, and you have a good time reading it at the same time. So I didn't want a textbook. I wrote the textbook. It was 500 pages. It was terrible. Then I sat down and I wrote this book, and I've been able to provide all the information with the details, with the support structure, and give you everything you need. You don't need to go back to the internet when you have this book in your hands. And we can fix what's going on. We can fix what's wrong and get much greater yards and much greater gardens reading the book. I mean, one of the biggest things that everybody worries about, especially when they start a brand new garden, is, oh my God, I'm going to stir things up and I'm going to bring the weeds back. Well, there's a substance that Mother Nature provides that we can apply very generously, meaning it's cheap. That's the interesting thing. It's cheap. It is it's corn gluten, the material that we're all told to stay away from. Gluten, it's so bad for you. Well, it turns out gluten is incredible as a nitrogen builder for the soil, but it also dehydrates and kills off weed seed. So as you open up a brand new garden and you've never touched soil before, you don't know what you're getting into, you apply corn gluten. One of the secrets in the book, corn gluten, tremendous, tremendous weed seed killer. It goes in, it dehydrates it, it doesn't allow it to come back. So you can eliminate all those weed seeds, and understand some of those things are nearly microscopic, the size of the head of a pin, and they're hiding in the soil, waiting for the right conditions. And by going in and opening up a garden, and in most cases, people will go out there and they'll rototill and they'll turn the thing over and they'll apply this and they'll apply that, and they'll bring in manures from unknown sources. And what they're doing is bringing in all of these weed seeds. All of these things Mother Nature has provided to change the soil conditions. We need to stop because we're going in opposite direction, and we're going to enhance those soils to begin with. All of the things to enhance the soils, to make them readily available this year in a garden or in an apartment for that matter, can all be obtained in this book. Everything is there. But you can treat the soils with corn gluten and solve the problems. In 6 to 8 weeks, corn gluten turns around and becomes a nitrogen, and it feeds the soil, it feeds the plants. So one of the secrets right out of the book, just like, another one for dealing with troublesome weeds in your driveway or something, is to go back to Mother Nature once again and use apple cider vinegar with just a little hint of salt, and salt the area down, spray the area down with just a little hand sprayer with some apple cider vinegar mixed with a little bit of salt, and it'll burn those weeds all the way down through the root bed and stop that weed in its tracks. You don't have to pull it. You don't have to run it over. You don't have to work. When you're working in a garden, you're doing something wrong. You should never have to work chasing weeds, chasing this or chasing that. You should just enjoy the abundance of being out in the garden and getting back to nature. And the book provides those abilities.
You touched on one of the topics that I have written on my notes here because I wanted to address that a little bit. But before I do that, can you give us your information that people can get in contact with you very early, so that as soon as they start listening and they want more information, they can go right to it? I'd like to get your website and whatever and other information you want to give us.
TheGreenWizardsGuide.com will take you directly to where the book is and where it can be found. You can also go to Amazon and just type in my name, Ron Neitzel, or type in Green Wizard, and Amazon will bring the book right up. It's available worldwide.
Okay, good. Thank you. The one thing that you brought up ahead of time before I asked, but it's on my note, is the gluten. Now, we're taught not to eat gluten because it damages the inside of the gut and things like that. It creates a lot of symptomatic problems, symptoms of diseases. Why gluten? What's deal with gluten. If we're going to put it in the
No,
soil, is it not going to come up in the plant?
no, it will not come up in the plant.
Okay.
Plants
So,
only take in what they need. They take in the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that they need. The plant as it grows communicates with the food web and tells the food web what it needs. The food web will then go out, in some cases over a mile, to bring back, and it's been measured, and bring back what minerals and substances the plant needs to create its fruits and its vegetables and what have you. Um, and corn gluten being there has no effect. When it turns to a nitrogen, the food web will feed the nitrogen back to the plant in exchange for sugar. That every plant, every green producing plant naturally produces in its roots. And it gives it to the food web, and the food web in response goes out and brings back what the plant is asking for. It's a very intricate system, but it is so fundamentally basic how this works. And corn gluten, our problem, our problem stems from our bad foods. When the human body, and you'll find this in nature all over the place, to just back up what I'm saying, the human body now cannot ingest gluten because we're not healthy. When we're healthy, corn gluten has no effect on us. Just like you're going to see most animals grazing on a lot of things, corn, wheat, barley, rye, and things just naturally out in the field. You'll find rabbits out there, you'll find deer out there, you'll find cows grazing in it. All of these animals have no problems processing this because they're healthy, they're eating healthy, they're eating what they should be eating. We're the ones with the problem. Our foods have become so dangerous and so chemical ridden. You go into a grocery store today and it frightens me. And you start looking at some of the ingredients on some of these boxes and these bags, and they're listing chemicals, not actual foods and food groups and minerals. They're just listing chemicals on some of these things. And it scares the living daylights out of me as to what it's actually doing in the human body. Is it there for flavoring, or is it there to actually do harm? I fear that it might be there to do harm. So I grow my own. It's relatively simple. For 49 cents, you can get a bag of seeds, put them in the soil, take care of the soil, and the soil will take care of you and give you foods you haven't tasted in 35 years because they're just not available anymore. We've mistreated the yards and our gardens so badly that they can't even survive without the NPK system, which is just a chemical-based system giving us fruits and vegetables that are not good for us.
okay, I want to go back to the worms a little bit. You gave us some solutions in the book how to actually make more worms come. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, worms are they're actually chasing parts of the food web. When the food web ingests the sugars and does this exchange, it puts off a very small smell in the soil. Now it's there and we smell it as one thing, but worms smell it as ammonia. And you can actually take a very small amount of ammonia in a hose end sprayer and spray down your lawn and attract worms. Now, of course, they're going to come in and they're looking for something to eat. They're looking for the food web. So you may want to add just a hint of sugar. In this case, I'm referring specifically to deer grade molasses. Now, most of your hunters are going to know what that is, but it is a raw form of molasses from the tree that has been cleaned up and filtered out a little bit. Completely organic, that you just put in a hose end sprayer with that hint of ammonia, and you spray this on your lawn. You spray this on your garden, and the food web thrives because it's getting the sugar, and the worms come in to feed on the food web because that's just what they do. It's part of it's part of the system. Everything eats everything else. You start at the bottom and you work your way up to the top of us on the top of the food chain. as we take care of the bottom, the worms just come in and thrive. And there's your irrigation, there's your aeration in the soil. Everything you need for your soils to be abundant and grow well.
Now, early on in the book, you talked about your bounty was like 600 pounds. How much did you have to plant to get 600 pounds?
3 tomato plants.
3 tomato plants. You got 600 pounds?
600 pounds of tomatoes.
Wow.
From
and
3
you said
plants.
They grew to like 16 feet?
Yeah. 16 to 19 feet. My last measurement from a year ago, my tomato plants extended 19 feet above the ground. Yes.
Now, are they growing up or out?
Out.
Okay.
I don't train them up because they're natural vines. They grow naturally in the wild. And I just went back to nature and I said, why am I causing myself a problem where they can fall over, they can be pinched off, they can this, they can that. I'm not saying don't train your tomatoes to be up in the sunlight and what have you, but when you start getting plants that are that long, let them run natural. And the abundance is incredible. Just take care of the soil and the plants will take care of you.
All right, we have about 4 minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about you about the last chapter. I think you talked about volcano ash and living next to a volcano. Now, I follow Dr. Joel Wallach, and he actually he's a naturopathic doctor and has been teaching people about health and reversing diseases for over 50 years now. Now, one of the things he talked about in his books was wood ash. He said that they used to put wood ash in the ground, and that would help the minerals. Can you give us a little bit about volcano and why?
Yes. Dr. Joel Wallach is a friend of mine. I follow him myself. He has heard of the book. He follows the book. He agrees that, I should have put blooming minerals in there. And I just didn't have the authority at the time that I was publishing to put blooming minerals, his mineral substance in the book to direct people as to where to get their hands on it. But what we're talking about is volcanic ash bringing out the minerals in the mineral base that all of our plants, even us as humans, need. We need 70 to 90 minerals, the mighty 90, in the human diet. And we can get those naturally from the plants, and we can help the soils by bringing all of those things in through volcanic ash, through some Gaia minerals, which is during the Ice Age, it scratched all of these minerals up and piled them up in this huge mountain. And Dr. Wallach has found it in a very, very clean way from prehistoric times. And these minerals, this is what everything needs. This is what we're taking out of the soil. What people misunderstand is that when they're growing a yard or growing weeds out in an area where they want to put a garden, that every one of these plants for years and years has been taking something out of the soil, continually taking something out of the soil as it grows, as it produces. And we are not replenishing the soils of these minerals. The minerals may be available deep in the soils, but if we've got too many weeds, obviously there's a soil problem. As we eliminate these issues and drive the weeds away, we get these minerals back, we get these things back. But who wants to wait 2 or 3 years for the soils to release them again when we can put them back immediately and start getting the results in weeks, not months or years? And that's what the book is about. It's giving us the ability to do this immediately, not next year.
All right, we have to wrap up. We only have a minute or so left. So again, can you give your information that people can contact you?
Yes, you can find me on thegreenwizardsguide.com and get your hands on a copy of the book. You can find my supporting website over on YouTube under the name Green Wizard, where there's more information, more detail about gardening specifically. The book is designed around yards, but so much of this bleeds over into the gardening world and into the farming world. We can get healthier, people. The book makes it available. reach out to me. I'm out there. The book and the information are incredible. I've spent 15 years putting this all together and 5 years writing the book. Learn from my mistakes.
Do you do one-on-one coaching?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And very quickly, because we do have to wrap up. My problem in my land or where I'm going to plant my garden is I have critters. I have groundhogs. I have foxes. How do we keep, do we have something to tell us to keep the plants away from them?
Well, you can fence the area in, but you want to start with moving objects. And you can buy CDs to just spin in the wind and little fans and what have you that are going to spin in the wind. Um, you can get solar powered thumpers that drive these animals crazy and drive them away. There's so many organic, safe ways to do this that we don't need to be putting out traps. We don't need to be doing some of these other things. Just having dogs around and having their manure around your garden will drive a lot of the predatory animals away and keep your garden safe.
Okay, thank you again for joining us. I think I want to invite you to come back and talk a little bit more, and I will let you know
Absolutely.
when the availability will be. But we want to have you come back and give some more information. In the meantime, thank you for listening to the Jadu-Lifestyle podcast, and we want you to ask you to go. If you're interested in gardening, go look up Ron's book. It's really a short read. I finished it in about an hour, and it's called The Green Wizard Guide. His name is spelled Neitzel, and his first name is Ron. So the last name is Neitzel. Thank you again, and join us for another episode of Jadu Lifestyle, where you get to life and you live it too.